Hi guys, today we're going to solve equations by using the quadratic formula. So we'll get to that in a minute. Let's just review how to solve it by factoring first. Remember our first step was to set the equation equal to 0. So we'd subtract 8. So we have x squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. We don't combine the 2x and the 8 because they're not like terms. We factor that trinomial, factors of 8 that subtract to make a 2. So we have 2 and 4, x plus 4, x minus 2. Then we do the finish line and we get the two answers. We set them each equal to 0. So we get x equals -4, x equals 2 when you add them over. And the next one, let's try to factor this one. Factors of 7 are 1 and 7. We don't have a pair that subtract to equal a -1. Therefore, we're going to need this thing called the quadratic formula. You don't have to memorize this. They'll give it to you, or I'll always give it to you. So you don't have to memorize the formula. So in order to use this, we need to remember to be sure that we put it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So set equal to 0. Make sure we want to find the values of a, b, and c. A is the sign in front of the x squared, b is in front of the x, c is called the constant. Write out the formula first. So that's very helpful. Write the formula first and then plug in the values. The expression under the radical, which is called the radicand, is called the determinant. We use this a lot in the next level of algebra and can be one of the following. It's either a perfect square, it's a perfect square factor that can be simplified, or a number without a perfect square factor and can't be simplified. It's either going to ask you to put it in simplest radical form or round to the nearest hundredth. So we'll go through and whichever one it asks us for, we'll do. So first step, is it set equal to 0? Yes. So then we can list our A, B, and C. So if there is no number in front of A, it's 1. B is a positive 10. C is a 9. We copy down the formula. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm going to plug in x equals -10 plus or minus the square root. B squared would be 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9 all over 2 times 1. So x equals -10 plus or minus the square root. This becomes 100 minus 36 all over 2. And do the math under the radical. -10 plus or minus the square root of 64 all over 2. You could also type this whole thing in at one time, keep the parentheses, and just go skip this step and just get the square root of 64. All right, so now this is the tricky part. We get -10 plus or minus 8 over 2. Because of the plus or minus, it means we have two answers, so I got to break it into two parts. X equals -10 plus 8 over 2. X equals -10 minus 8 over 2. -10 plus 8 is -2. So I get -2 over 2, which is -1, -18 over 2, which is -9. So our two answers for this are -1 and -9. Because I got two nice numbers that work, it means it was factorable. So obviously, if you see that, we could have factored this as x plus 9, x plus 1 equals 0. Way less work. But usually we're doing the quadratic formula because it does not factor. Or maybe you're just only factoring, so you can do the quadratic formula. Let's try another. List our coefficients. The equation set equal to 0. So I have 1 for A, -1 for B, -7 for C. Write the formula. So plug in, be careful, a negative, negative. If you want to write it as a positive right away, that's totally fine. Always put your B in parentheses because when it's a negative number squared, we want it to turn out positive. All right, so I highly recommend you just type in the determinant all in one shot on your calculator. So type in -1 squared minus 4 times 1 times -7. What did you get? So we get 1 plus or minus. Did you get the square root of 29? 1 plus 28 is 29, all over 2. This one does not work out evenly. So there's two ways we could express our answer. In simplest radical form, when you type this in, use your fraction key. So remember alpha y equals, type in 1 plus the square root of 29 on the top over 2. See what you get. For the simplest radical form, you could break it into two answers, or you can put the plus or minus. So we're doing 1 plus the square root of 29 . So to the nearest tenth is 1 decimal place. So I'm getting 6.4 when oh, sorry, I didn't divide by 2. I'm getting 3.2 when I add I'm getting -2.2 when I subtract. All right, so you're going to try 3. I'll put the answer there for you to check. So hit pause, try 3, and then I'll help you on 4. All right, so hopefully you've done some work. So this one gets a little bit tricky. Did you get x equals -4 plus or minus the square root of 80 all over 2? So if you didn't, check your math. I had a -4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times -16 all over 2a. When I typed 16 plus 64 into my calculator, I got an 80. So now it says leave your answer in simplest radical form. So we just practiced simplifying radicals. So we have to take this one more step. So what is the perfect square, the largest perfect square in 80? So remember our perfect square list, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. So it's got to be less than 40 because 80 divided by 2 is 40. So start backwards. Does 80 divide by 36? No. Does 80 divide by 25? Nope. Does 80 divide by 16? Yes. So we get x equals, let's just do it off to the side. 80 breaks down to 16 and 5. So we get 4 radical 5. So we get -4 plus or minus 4 radical 5 all over 2, which is -2 plus or minus 2 radical 5. We divided both of these by 2. Only divide the coefficients, nothing under the radical. All right, last one. This time it wants us to round to the nearest hundredth. So how many decimal places is 100th? Good, 2 decimal places. Our coefficients are 3, -10, and 5. We're setting up the quadratic formula. So x equals a negative negative or a positive 10, plus or minus. Again, make sure under the radical, you're putting the b squared always in parentheses. So you get x equals 10 plus or minus the square root of 40, I believe. Check my math. All over 6. When we round to the nearest hundredth, we don't have to worry about simplifying. So we'll do 10 plus the square root of 40 over 6 and 10 minus the square root of 40 over 6. So check my math. I'm getting 0.62 when I subtract and 2.72 when I add. So hopefully you were listening, trying on your own to be most successful. There's 4 problems for you to do, 2 with the quadratic formula, and then I will give you a quizzes to try also. Good luck. Have a great day.